Hey listeners, be sure to check out slipdisc.com for the latest inside information on classical music now. American conductor Gerard Schwarz has led some of the world's finest orchestras for the past half-century. With 9 Emmy Awards, 14 Grammy nominations, and over 350 recordings to his name, it's remarkable to consider that his illustrious conducting career began with a pivotal decision to leave behind his first career as a trumpet soloist.
How could I think at the age of 28 or 29 that I could take something I loved and was a part of my being? I mean, to this day, I dream about playing. How could I just put that aside and assume that I'm going to become a successful conductor? I mean, it's all stupid.
You're listening to Speaking Soundly, a backstage pass to today's biggest stars of the music world. I'm your host, David Krause, principal trumpet of the Metropolitan Opera. During each episode, you'll hear me speak with inspiring performers about their creative process and the personal journey that led them to the stage. I thought of you just last week when I was in the library of Juilliard and I walked upstairs to the listening area, that glassed off area, because as a student, I would spend the better part of my day listening to records there, most of them your solo trumpet albums.
Oh.
Well, I was so taken by your virtuoso playing and delicate style that it made an indelible mark on my playing and set a musical standard that I'm still chasing to this day. When you were younger, did you have a similar experience? Like, who was your musical North Star?
It's a very complicated question for me because I had basically 2 directions I was influenced in. One was the trumpet direction. Then on a musical level, I always looked towards the conductors that influenced me. I mean, it was people like George Szell, who had a tremendous influence on me. Bernstein did, of course, too, but it was different because with Bernstein, I used to go to the concerts when I was in high school and just be wowed at the passion and the intensity and the beauty. And it was just the most extraordinary. So it was that combination of the perfection of someone like Szell, the passion of someone like Bernstein, that kind of influenced me as a trumpet player.
By the time you were in high school, you were already playing at a virtuoso level. So I assume your musical training started extremely early. How did music fit into your life growing up in New Jersey as a child of 2 medical doctors?
I was very lucky in that, yes, I grew up in Weehawken, which is on the other side of the Lincoln Tunnel. To get from Weehawken to Manhattan, it's like 3 miles. It's not very far. And my parents were medical doctors from Vienna, and music and the arts in general was a part of their life. So when they were students, they would wait in line to do standing room at the opera in Vienna. It wasn't that it was a superfluous thing that people did. It was part of the essence of life. And my sisters and I all studied the piano from the time we were 5. We went to the Philharmonic. We went to the City Opera. We went to the Met. We went to the City Ballet. We went to the museums. So I was very lucky to have those exposures. And then my father worked all the time. So my mother decided that I had to get out of the house. So she sent me to Interlochen National Music Camp. And that was a transformational moment for me because I just fell in love with orchestra. I fell in love with the music and I fell in love with the sound. I love the people. I love the relationship we have to the music. And so once, my parents were busy. They were working, both doctors working all the time. So they really kind of left me alone. And I remember a moment when I was a senior in high school and applying to college. My father said to me, "So, son, are you applying to college?" I mean, can you imagine saying that to your kid? I said, "Oh, yes, Dad." And he said, "Oh, good. Where are you applying?" And I said, "Well, I'm applying to Juilliard." He said, "Oh, good. Now, where else?" And I said, "Nowhere else." He said, "Well, what if you don't get in?" I said, "Well, of course I'm going to get in." This is naive. But nowadays, my grandson is 18 months and we're already petitioning to get him into nursery school. It's a whole nother world.
Usually People who emigrate to this country, especially around the time that your parents did, they want a better life for their children and a more secure life for their children than they had. And usually that means you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Yet your parents were doctors and they had a very hands-off approach.
They were kicked out of the University of Vienna Medical School, where the sign went up in 1938, no Jews allowed. And they were thrown out of school. Half the professors in the medical school were thrown out of teaching there. For them to get a better life meant that they stayed alive. My grandparents on my mother's side were murdered. It's an experience that neither you nor I can really understand. When I would try to talk to my mother about what happened, she wouldn't talk to me about it. It was just too devastating because we know what happened to her parents. In Latvia, they were shot in 1943 into an open grave. It's not like what happened to them. No, we know exactly. We know what transport they were on. We know what train they were on. And so my mother, I don't think, ever got over it. I mean, how could you? And so sure enough, no matter what my sisters and I did, it was a heck of a better life than being killed by the Germans,
I read that at the age of 12, you had already decided that you wanted to become a musician. Now, most 12-year-olds don't know what they're doing tomorrow, much less the rest of their lives. What inspired you at that young age to make such a critical and emphatic decision?
Well, it goes back a little further. When I was 7, I heard Aida for the first time, and I heard those herald trumpets in the triumphal march. And at that moment, I said, I have to play the trumpet. So,
Wow.
most kids, I mean, I don't know how you got interested in the trumpet. Most kids it's because of jazz or because of Dixieland or because of marching band. Most kids don't get involved in playing the trumpet because of going to the opera. Now, what about you? What inspired you to play the trumpet?
Well, I mean, I kind of told you, Jerry. It was listening to your recordings. So you'd end up going to high school of the performing arts here in New York City and then Juilliard. And shortly thereafter, you had built this career that was so successful on the trumpet that by the age of 30, you had done everything that there was to do as a soloist, chamber musician, orchestral musician, and you felt confident enough that you could walk away from that. Did your immediate success take you by surprise, or was this all part of the plan that you had envisioned for yourself by the age of 12?
David, it's all stupidity. It was all stupidity. Here, I dreamt all my life to be in the New York Philharmonic, and there I was, and loving it. And then I thought, I love playing my part, but I love to get more involved with everything else that was going on. And I was very influenced by Bernstein, Boulez, Leinstorff, and I thought, maybe I could be one of them. And so then I said, okay, I'm gonna make that switch. I mean, how could I think at the age of 28 or 29 that I could take something I loved and was a part of everything, my being? I mean, to this day, I dream about playing. How could I just put that aside and assume that I'm going to become a successful conductor? I mean, that's all stupid. But I mean, it was just if I wasn't so one-dimensional in my thinking, when I was growing up, my one dimension was playing the trumpet. When anything else got in the way, I went back to playing all the time. And I remember my first lesson with Vacchiano. He said to me, "How many hours a day do you practice?" And I said, "Well, I practice 4 hours a day." He said, "Go to the movies." What he meant was, you're just wasting a lot of time, which was true, because I practiced for 45 minutes or an hour max, and then I'd have fun. I play excerpts, I play concertos, I play sonatas. I play everything just because I love playing. It wasn't practicing at all. It was just playing because I love the sound. I love the music. When I was 30 and I quit, in a way, it was partly of inspiration of Bernstein, because he was a pianist, a composer, and a conductor. And so when one critic would kill his piece, he said, it doesn't matter, I'm a pianist and a conductor anyway. Somebody killed his piano playing, doesn't matter, I'm a composer. And someone killed his conducting, it doesn't matter, I'm a pianist and composer. I mean, he had his way out. And I thought, how would it be if I continued to try to play, which would have been impossible because of the amount of study I had to do as a conductor. But even if I had been able to do that, it would always be, oh, well, he's such a wonderful trumpet player. Why would he waste his time trying to conduct? So once I wasn't a trumpet player at all, then that evaluation could still exist. People could say, oh, he used to be a great player and now he's a terrible conductor. But basically, people just forget, thank goodness. And it took quite a few years, but eventually everybody forgot that I ever played. If I would ask my students here at the Frost School of Music, the Frost Orchestra, how many of you knew that I was a trumpet player? I would say a majority would not know that I played.
I mean, well, that's unimaginable to me just because, like I said, I grew up on your recordings. But practically speaking, in your career, when you're an instrumentalist, you build a career by auditioning. It's not an easy process, but there's a mechanism for employment. You compete, and it's pretty cut and dry whether you get it or not. But as a conductor, building a career is different. What was it like for you when you were just starting out?
Well, you're right. It's very different. And the instrumental way is better. The conductor way is not so hot because most people who are making decisions about conductors don't know very much. Sometimes you have a music director search and they have board members. I mean, I love my board, every place I've ever been, but really, what the hell do they know? Or you bring orchestra players in. Well, they know a lot, but they don't know a lot, right? They know a lot about how do you communicate? What's your personality like? What do you think about phrasing? What's your knowledge of pitch and rhythm and blah, blah, blah? Well, they don't know about what the orchestra sounds like in front of them. So you have basic things that you can judge.
Well, I've never conducted an orchestra, but I would imagine the real challenge is not coming up with the musical idea, something novel. It's having the skill to implement it. When was the first time you stood in front of an orchestra and that transformation happened, that you were able to communicate the vision of the music that you had in your head and hear the musicians in front of you play it?
Well, that's of course, like all your questions, it's a great question. When I decided to become a conductor, because I was in the Philharmonic, right? And all these guest conductors would come. I'm not talking about my favorites like Bernstein. And most of them just didn't make music, as far as I was concerned. They said louder, softer, shorter, longer. It wasn't about how do you etch this phrase. And I thought to myself, if I ever become a conductor, the most important thing for me will be the etching of the phrase, the ideas. So how do I implement that? Well, I didn't study conducting. I mean, I learned my craft, believe me. But at first, I had to verbalize a lot. And it took longer. Boy, it took time because I didn't have the tools that I try to teach my students. So for me, I started conducting full-time when I was 30. My recordings from those days, I think, are very good. I like them a lot. But I remember how hard it was to get it to go that way. Now, and you just communicate everything because you've done it. You have the experience. And efficiency is of crucial importance. So it's the twofold thing of comfort and accuracy. It's fun putting the puzzles together. I enjoy that.
And as you're putting those pieces together in rehearsal and making sure that the orchestra plays with precision, I mean, that's such an important factor in making music. But precision for precision's sake isn't the ultimate goal, right? Is there a sweet spot between clarity and emotion? Like, can you have one without the other?
It really just depends upon the piece. There are some pieces where, it's all about the passion. It's all about the beauty and the drama. There are other pieces which you could actually say are pretty much all about the accuracy, the pinpointed the dynamics, the rhythm, the attack, the blah, blah, blah. And that the musical result is the result of the perfection. Great music has both. On the other hand, you can have a great piece where there's a section where if it's all just perfect and meticulous, the expression becomes the accuracy. So it's a very complicated question. So the answer, of course, ultimately is you always want to have it be as accurate as possible and so forth and so on. But you also want it to have its distinctive character. And I think that's in some ways the most important word, that what is the character of this section? What adjective would you use to describe it? Yes, you want it together. You want the rhythm to be right. So, but what are we projecting? And that's the hard part and the fun part.
You've spent a lifetime championing American composers and bringing their music to American audiences. How did this in particular become such an integral part of your musical identity and mission?
Uh, Again, it came from my childhood. When I was a youngster, I played the trumpet. So what did we play? Well, you play the orchestra, but we kids, we like to play solos. So you play Baroque music, or you can do some French repertoire, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a lot of new music. There's not a lot of Beethoven or Brahms or Tchaikovsky, except if you're in the orchestra. So as a youngster, I was listening to a lot of American music. And then my father, when I was a freshman in high school, said, well, look, if you're going to be a musician, you better be one that is intelligent and well educated. And I was composing at the time. I'm going to get you a composition teacher. He got me Paul Creston to study with. So every other week I had a lesson with Paul Creston at Hotel Ansonia in Manhattan, carrying forward that whole idea of great American music. Also, when I was at Interlochen, the Interlochen theme was written by Howard Hanson. So, you hear this theme at the end of every concert. You never think that Howard Hanson was nobody and Beethoven was somebody. Beethoven was important and Howard Hanson was important. So that was just a part of my upbringing. And then when I became a conductor and was able to do programming, I remembered all of that. And the Howard Hanson theme, was that from the Second Symphony? Oh yeah, I like that. And then I did all the symphonies of Hans. I became a close friend, a family friend of David Diamond. I did all of his music. I knew all these people. I knew Copeland. I knew Barber. There's lots of repertoire left that I haven't done. But, I'm still young. I'll keep at it.
You've premiered and commissioned new works. You composed them yourself. In your vast experience of bringing new works to audiences, what's the recipe of a piece that sticks? Like it sticks enough that an audience wants to hear it again?
Well, I'm a traditionalist. I think that the music that will stick, the music that can be understood. We all understand harmony. I don't care who you are. People that say they're tone deaf, it's wrong. They're not tone deaf. Nobody's tone deaf. You play Happy Birthday with the wrong chords and they'll all get it. I remember doing that once with a guy who said he was tone deaf. I went to the piano and played Happy Birthday 3 different ways. And one way had the right chords. And I said, which one's right? And he picked the right one. How did he do that if he's tone deaf? So I believe that, there are textural things and there are coloristic things that we can do now that Brahms didn't do. Okay. So we can take advantage of the incredible colors. But I believe in the drama. I believe in the passion. I believe in the recognizable harmony. Not always, but often. It doesn't mean you're not going to use elements of serialism. You listen to the Cottage Symphony of Bernstein, which is full of great tunes. It also has some sections that are basically 12-tone sections, but that's for drama. So I think that the recipe is the same. It's no different. Now, the opera, of course, is very different because the opera, it's a lot about story. So, one of the first operas I ever fell in love with was Lulu. Was it because I can sing the tunes to you? No, I just thought the story was, you can't stop. You can't stop wondering what's going to happen. The music was such a part of it. It was great. When I was younger and conservative, it was musically, it was okay. Now I'm older and conservative. Now you're an old fogey, So, but I think that the elements that make music enjoyable has not changed.
But I'm curious for you if the concert experience itself has changed. You keep an unbelievably busy schedule, yet you go to concerts in the audience all the time. How has your experience in the audience changed over the decades?
Certainly, people are much more casually dressed than they used to be.
Actually, didn't you tell me about concerts at the New York Philharmonic in the 60s that had the audience sitting like on a carpet on the floor? You were telling me about that, right?
Well, Boulez started what was called the rug concerts. They took the seats out, they put rugs down, and people sat on the floor. Exactly. It was successful to a point, and he did a lot of new music, and it was a lot of fun. But years later, the management told me that people really didn't embrace that.
Yeah.
But he was trying to make it more casual. But audiences vote with their feet. If they hear concerts with lots of music they hate, they eventually will not go. And our audiences don't care about anything to do with a specific composer. Is the composer white or black, or is it a woman, or is it a man? I mean, the audience doesn't care. They care about the quality of the music. And so what we have to do is always remember that the most important thing is the quality of the music. If you go to too many concerts where you hate the music, eventually you're going to say, if I hate the music, why am I going? Now, you can do that with performances too. You can say, if the performance is really boring and really dull, the audience will turn off. That's a little more sophisticated than I hate this piece. I go to other orchestra concerts where you just wonder, why are they doing that? Why are they programming that horrible piece? And then the audience afterwards goes like that. And, so on the other hand, we are leaders and we're supposed to lead, but not commit suicide.
Your career in particular has spanned several lifetimes, and you're still as busy as ever. What is it about the process of making music that has kept you engaged for this long? Like, what does music do for you?
As you know, I love it. Okay. I have a passion for it. I have a great curiosity. A lot of people have passion and love and curiosity. I also have a bizarre work ethic. It came from my parents, who had an equally bizarre work ethic. Now, when we are in the music world, we call it playing. We're playing music. And I do love it, and I enjoy it. I guess for some people, retirement isn't in the cards, and certainly not in the cards for me. I'm not sure if I have any more mountains to climb, but I'll certainly try.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Speaking Soundly. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about it. Spread the word. Be sure to follow, rate us, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. To keep up on future episodes, follow us on Instagram at SpeakingSNDLY and visit our website, artfulnarrativesmedia.com. Tune in next week as we hear another inspiring artist speaking soundly.